I still remember that cold December evening like it was yesterday. The wind was howling through the trees, and the temperature had dropped to what felt like below freezing. My name's Alex, and I was a sophomore on the university swim team at the time. Our practice had run late that evening, and most of us were exhausted, our muscles aching from the intense training session our coach had put us through. Among my teammates was Jake, tall, broad-shouldered, with that easy confidence that seemed to follow him everywhere. We'd been friends since freshman orientation, bonding over our shared love for competitive swimming and terrible action movies. Jake was the kind of guy everyone wanted to be around, funny, laid back, and completely unaware of how charming he could be. The team usually took the campus shuttle back to the dorms after evening practices. It was a routine we'd all grown accustomed to: finish practice, shower quickly, and then hurry to catch the 8:15 bus. But that evening, things went a little differently. Coach had kept us in the water longer than usual, preparing for the upcoming regional championships. By the time we'd all showered and changed, most of the team had already rushed ahead to catch the bus. Jake and I were the last ones out, having stayed behind to help put away some equipment. As we pushed through the heavy doors of the athletic center, we were immediately hit by a blast of frigid air, the kind that makes your lungs hurt when you breathe too deeply. I remember pulling my jacket tighter around myself, cursing under my breath about the weather. Jake, beside me, was doing the same, his breath forming small clouds in the air as he complained about Coach's brutal training session. "We should hurry," I said, glancing at my watch. "The bus leaves in like 3 minutes." We picked up our pace, jogging across the campus quad, our gym bags bouncing against our sides. The bus stop was just ahead, illuminated by a single street lamp that cast long shadows across the pavement. As we approached, I could see the familiar shape of the campus shuttle, and to my horror, it was already pulling away from the curb. "No, no, no," Jake shouted, breaking into a full sprint. I followed, but it was too late. The bus driver either didn't see us or chose to ignore our frantic waving. The red taillights disappeared around the corner, leaving us stranded in the cold. Jake let out a string of colorful curses that would have made our coach proud. "Are you kidding me? That's the last shuttle until 9:30. I checked my phone to confirm, and sure enough, we had over an hour to wait until the next bus would arrive. An hour in the freezing cold with nothing but our gym clothes and light jackets to keep us warm. The campus coffee shop had already closed, and the library was on the other side of campus, too far to walk only to turn around and come back for the next bus. "This is just great," I muttered, dropping my gym bag onto the bench at the bus stop. "I'm already freezing." Jake paced back and forth, rubbing his hands together. "How is it this cold already? It's only December." We sat down on the metal bench, which felt like sitting on a block of ice. The wind seemed to cut right through my jacket, and I could feel goosebumps rising on my arms and legs. Jake wasn't faring much better. Despite being the more muscular of the two of us, he had always been more sensitive to cold. "I can't feel my fingers," he complained after about 10 minutes of waiting. He was shivering visibly now, his teeth chattering between words. Why didn't I bring gloves? My mom would be so disappointed in me right now. I laughed, though it came out as more of a shudder. My toes are going numb too. This is ridiculous. The bus stop had a small shelter, but it did little to block the wind that seemed to be coming from all directions. We huddled closer together instinctively, seeking whatever warmth we could find. That's when Jake got that look on his face, the one he always had right before suggesting something either brilliant or completely absurd. "You know," he said, rubbing his hands together vigorously, "my older brother taught me this trick when we used to go camping. Body heat is the best way to stay warm." I raised an eyebrow. "What are you suggesting? A group hug? There's only 2 of us." Jake laughed. "No, man. But seriously, we've got like 45 minutes to wait, and I'm actually concerned about frostbite at this point." Before I could respond, Jake had stood up and was looking at me with a mix of determination and slight embarrassment. "Don't make this weird, okay? But I'm going to sit on your lap." I blinked, certain I had misheard him. "You're going to what now?" "Sit on your lap." "To warm up," he repeated, as if it were the most normal suggestion in the world. "We'll both be warmer that way. It's just physics, dude." I couldn't help but laugh. "Jake, you're like 6'1" and all muscle. You'll crush me." He shrugged, the cold apparently overriding any concerns about awkwardness. "I'll be gentle. Come on, it's either this or we both freeze to death, and I've got that calculus exam tomorrow that I'd really like to live to fail. Before I could protest further, Jake had plopped himself sideways across my lap, his arm going around my shoulders for balance. I let out an oof as his weight settled on me, but I had to admit, the immediate warmth was undeniable. "See? Better already," Jake said triumphantly, though I could hear the slight nervousness in his voice that suggested he was aware of how unusual this might look to anyone passing by. And it was unusual. Here we were, two college swimmers, one straight, one gay, though I wasn't out to the team yet, huddled together at a bus stop like children trying to share a too-small chair. The absurdity of the situation wasn't lost on me. "If the team could see us now," I said, trying to adjust my position to better support his weight. Jake laughed. "They'd never let us live it down. But honestly, I don't even care right now. I can feel my fingers again." There was something strangely comfortable about the whole thing, despite the initial awkwardness. Jake and I had always had an easy friendship. He was one of the few people who made me feel completely at ease, never judging, always ready with a joke or a word of encouragement when needed. Still, this level of physical closeness was new territory for us. "You know," Jake said after a few minutes of surprisingly comfortable silence, "my dad would probably have a heart attack if he saw this. He's got all these ideas about how guys should act around each other." I nodded, understanding all too well. "Yeah, my dad's the same. Men don't hug, men don't cry, men certainly don't sit on each other's laps to stay warm. It's stupid, right?" Jake shifted slightly, getting more comfortable. "Like, we're literally just trying not to freeze, and somehow that would be a threat to our masculinity, or whatever." I was surprised by his candor. Jake had never struck me as someone who thought much about these things. "Yeah, it is stupid. In some cultures, physical closeness between friends is totally normal." "Exactly," Jake said, his enthusiasm making him bounce slightly on my lap, causing me to wince. "Oh, sorry. But seriously, my cousin studied abroad in Italy, and he said guys there are way more comfortable with physical contact. Like, they'll greet each other with kisses on the cheek and stuff." "Must be nice," I said, perhaps a bit too wistfully, "to not have to worry about all the unspoken rules." Jake was quiet for a moment. "Yeah, it must be." He paused, then added, "You know, I've always thought those rules were kind of, I don't know, limiting. Like, why should I care if someone thinks it's weird that I'm sitting on my friend's lap to stay warm? We're both consenting adults making a practical decision." I couldn't help but smile at his rationalization. "That's very progressive of you, Jake." "I have my moments," he replied with a grin. "Besides, you're comfortable. Like a warm, slightly bony chair." "Gee, thanks," I laughed. "You're like a heavy, slightly squirmy blanket." We fell into a comfortable rhythm of conversation, talking about everything from our classes to our families to our dreams for after college. The cold became less noticeable as we chatted, our combined body heat creating a small bubble of warmth in the frigid night air. At one point, a group of students walked by, giving us curious glances. Jake didn't even flinch or try to move. Instead, he waved cheerfully at them. "Missed the bus," he called out by way of explanation. They laughed and continued on their way. "You didn't have to explain," I said after they'd passed. Jake shrugged. "I wasn't explaining, just sharing our misfortune. Besides, I'm comfortable and warm now, and I'm not moving until that bus comes." There was something freeing about his attitude, about the way he seemed completely unbothered by what others might think. It made me wonder how different my life might be if I approached things the same way, if I worried less about perceptions and more about what felt right to me. "Can I ask you something?" I said, the words coming out before I'd fully thought them through. Jake turned his head slightly to look at me. "Sure, shoot. Do you ever worry about, I don't know, how people see you? Like, if you're living up to what everyone expects?" It was a loaded question, especially coming from someone who was hiding a significant part of their identity. But in that moment, huddled together against the cold, it felt safe to ask. Jake was quiet for a long moment, and I worried I'd crossed some invisible line in our friendship. But then he sighed, his breath visible in the cold air. "All the time," he admitted. "My dad has this whole plan for me. Business school, joining his firm, taking over when he retires. The swimming is just something he tolerates because it looks good on applications." He shifted again, this time more restlessly. "But I don't want any of that. I want to teach, maybe coach swimming at a high school or something. But every time I try to bring it up, he shuts it down." I was surprised by his confession. Jake had always seemed so confident, so sure of his path. I had no idea. Yeah, well, it's not exactly something I advertise. He gave a small, self-deprecating laugh. Easier to just go along with it, you know? Keep the peace. I did know. All too well. But is keeping the peace worth giving up what you really want? The question hung between us, heavier than Jake's weight on my increasingly numb legs. He didn't answer immediately, and I didn't push. We sat in contemplative silence for a few minutes. The only sounds the distant campus noises and the wind rustling through the bare trees. What about you? Jake finally asked, turning the question back on me. Are you living the life everyone expects? It was the perfect opening, a moment where I could have been honest about who I really was. But fear, that familiar companion, held my tongue. I'm trying to figure that out, I said instead, a half-truth that wasn't quite a lie. Jake seemed to sense there was more I wasn't saying. He studied my face for a moment, then nodded. Yeah, me too. I guess that's what college is for, right? Figuring stuff out. Hopefully, I agreed. Though sometimes it feels like I'm just collecting more questions rather than finding answers. That's deep, man, Jake said with a grin, lightening the mood. You should write that down. I laughed and gave him a gentle shove, which was a mistake as it nearly toppled both of us off the bench. We scrambled to regain our balance, laughing like idiots as we steadied ourselves. Careful, Jake exclaimed, tightening his arm around my shoulders. Don't dump me on the ground. It's freezing out there. Maybe if you weren't so heavy, I teased. It's all muscle, he protested, flexing his free arm dramatically. Coach says I'm at my optimal competition weight. Well, tell your optimal competition weight that my legs are going numb. Jake immediately looked concerned. For real? Do you want me to move? The genuine concern in his voice touched me. Despite the discomfort, I shook my head. Nah, I'm just complaining. It's still warmer this way. He relaxed back against me. Good, because I was lying about being willing to move. I'm way too comfortable now. We lapsed into another comfortable silence. I found myself thinking about how strange and yet natural this moment felt, this unexpected intimacy with someone who had no idea about an essential part of who I was. Would things be different if he knew? Would he still be sitting here, completely at ease in my personal space? These thoughts must have shown on my face because Jake nudged me gently. Penny for your thoughts? You went all serious on me. I hesitated, then decided on another half-truth. Just thinking about friendship, I guess. How some people come into your life and just fit, even in weird situations like this. Jake's face softened into a genuine smile. Yeah, I get that. You know, when I first met you at orientation, I thought, this guy gets it. Whatever it was. He laughed. I still think that. Even though I'm a terrible chair? Especially because you're a terrible chair, he confirmed with a solemn nod. It shows character. The sound of an engine approaching caught our attention, and we both turned to see the campus shuttle finally rounding the corner. Jake let out a whoop of excitement. Salvation, he cried dramatically, but made no immediate move to get up. As the bus pulled up to the stop, its doors opening with a hydraulic hiss, Jake finally stood, stretching his arms above his head. Man, I think my butt fell asleep. Imagine how my legs feel, I retorted, standing up shakily. The blood rushed back into my lower extremities with painful tingles. We grabbed our gym bags and climbed onto the bus, which was blissfully warm. There were only a few other students aboard, all looking equally cold and tired. Jake and I found seats near the back, dropping into them with grateful sighs. Thanks for being my human chair, Jake said as the bus pulled away from the curb. Seriously, I think you saved me from hypothermia. I laughed. Anytime. Well, preferably not anytime. Preferably when it's not freezing and we haven't missed the bus. Jake grinned. Deal. He paused, then added more seriously. And hey, about all that stuff we talked about, thanks for listening. I don't really talk about the whole dad situation with many people. Of course, I said, feeling a twinge of guilt that I hadn't been equally forthcoming. That's what friends are for, right? Right. Jake agreed, settling back into his seat. Although I think after tonight, we've moved beyond regular friends to friends who have shared body heat to survive the elements. It's a very exclusive club. I couldn't help but laugh. Is there a membership card? Secret handshake. We're working on it, Jake said with mock seriousness. For now, it's just the shared knowledge that if apocalyptic winter comes, we've got each other's backs. Or laps, as the case may be. The bus rumbled on toward the dorms, the warmth slowly returning to our bodies. As I looked over at Jake, now animatedly telling me about the calculus exam he was definitely going to fail the next day, I felt a surge of affection for this friend who had no idea how much his easy acceptance meant to me. That night taught me something important about friendship and about myself. Sometimes the most meaningful connections happen in the most unexpected moments, like when your straight teammate decides to sit on your lap at a bus stop because it's cold and he missed the bus. And sometimes, those moments give you the courage to eventually be honest about who you are. It would be another 3 months before I came out to Jake and the rest of the team. And when I did, Jake's response was typical Jake, a shrug, a smile, and cool, man. Does this mean I can't sit on your lap anymore when I'm cold? Because that would be discrimination. Some friendships transcend the boundaries we think define them. Some people accept us exactly as we are, even when we're still figuring that out for ourselves. And sometimes, missing the bus turns out to be the best thing that could happen to you on a cold December evening. Total_char_count, 13,826.